Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Welcome, empowered investors from around the country and around the world. This is your host, Jason Hartman, with episode number 1010. 1010. That is today's episode, 1010. Cool number. So, hey, we are doing a 10th episode show today, and of course that means we go off topic. We discuss something of general interest, and we are going to discuss ADHD. Yes, you have heard of it. One of the many overdiagnosed, well, I believe totally overdiagnosed, so the pharmaceutical industry can sell more of their dangerous drugs to people, symptoms and maladies. But hey, it's not always a malady, you know. Our guest today will talk about how it benefits him and how you can use things like this and other alleged maladies, I'll say, for lack of a better word. I don't know, maybe that's not the right word. Pardon me if it's not. To your advantage, using them to your advantage. You know, we all have strengths and weaknesses. When I grew up, I had a lot of weaknesses. First of all, I was poor. That was a weakness. Being poor is no fun. That's what I do in the world. I try to change that and save people from being poor because I don't recommend it. Just so you know, I do not recommend it. You gotta love these crazy people that say, well, money won't buy you happiness. Well, neither will poverty, folks. Neither will poverty. So it's just absolute silliness we hear out there sometimes, isn't it? Yeah, so I grew up with really a lot of disadvantages. And I think in many ways they made me a stronger, better person. But if I didn't have some of those disadvantages, maybe I'd be further along in life. Who knows? You never know, because you can't hear the dogs that don't bark. You can't hear the dogs that don't bark. And we just never know. These are unanswered questions. They are questions that will never be answered. Of course, there have been plots of several good movies to this effect. Of course, maybe the most famous one is that one with Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life. Hopefully you watch it every year around Christmas time. It's great, very sentimental movie, and just shows the difference that we all make in the world and in each other's lives, even though sometimes we don't think we're making a difference. So before we get into our 10th show guest today, where we talk about, again, a broad general interest topic, really the crux of it is turning perceived disadvantages into advantages. Oh, one of my other weaknesses growing up, right? Disadvantages in life. Dyslexia. Now, I don't know if I was really cured of it or not, but I certainly had it when I was a kid. I am not the fastest reader today. I do like reading, but I find it to be somewhat difficult. My eyes wander around the page. My mind gets cluttered with other thoughts. I know, you're probably thinking, Jason, you need to practice meditation and become more centered. You might be right about that, but namaste. Anyway, so we all have these advantages and disadvantages. How can we turn them into strengths? There are lots of inspiring stories we all hear about these kinds of things, and, we'll hear a perspective on that today with today's guest, Peter Shankman. And by the way, very successful entrepreneur. So we'll hear more about that here in just a moment. But first, I want to talk to you about this concept of the family office. And when I say that, I don't mean the stereotypical family office, the one we did a show on a while back, where we talked about how ultra-wealthy people have family offices to manage their investments, their affairs, their portfolio, etc. I want to talk about the mini family office, your family office, my family office. and how we can better, it's really just about how we can better manage our investment portfolios. So I wanted to give you a couple resources today. We have some of these guests coming up on the show, so stay tuned for future episodes with them. But you've all heard of VAs. No, I don't mean the Veterans Administration, but you've heard of that too. And it's run by the government, so of course it has lots of problems. No, I'm talking about virtual assistants, VAs, virtual assistants. And there are many websites in the gig economy. We are living in the gig economy nowadays, right? Where people have gigs rather than jobs and careers. They have a gig, and they have lots of gigs. And so there are many websites where you can hire freelancers and people who can just do small jobs. One that I use somewhat frequently is called TaskRabbit. You may have heard of it. There is also one called freelancer.com. What's the other one? Guru.com. And then there's, of course, Upwork that acquired Elance, and Elance merged with, what was the other one? Odesk. And so these are all freelancer websites. But did you know there is an association, at least one, for virtual assistants, and that is the IVAA at IVAA.org, where they have directories of virtual assistants, and they do all sorts of things, right? They do all sorts of stuff. But then a friend of mine owns a VA company that is focused on real estate specifically. And I'm not going to give you the name of that one, not because I have a big judgment about it or anything. This is my friend who owns it. But they focus more on people who are really in the trenches, getting their hands not just dirty, but really, really dirty. They're doing all sorts of things that our clients don't do. These are the people that have companies, or they're the real do-it-yourselfers that are just getting way deep in the weeds here, okay? And that's not what we're about. That's not what our clients are about. What we're about is investing, not about doing it yourself. Now, there are certainly, you can do it yourself if you want, but we're about having empowered investors that do some things themselves, but they don't go out and knock on doors and try to talk people into foreclosure to selling their house to us, right? We don't do that. We don't really teach that stuff. That's just a different side of the business. These people are engaged in this 24/7, 365 type stuff. But we just want to manage our investment portfolio, right? Our little mini family office, not the $100 million or $1 billion family office, but the middle class and upper middle class family office. I think I'm talking to you. There are some VA firms that focus more on real estate related stuff. realestatevirtualassistantservices.com would be one, right? And they focus more on the real estate game and can help you, our investors, do things to better manage your portfolio, right? There's one called hiresmartvas.com, right? That's another one that's available out there. And there are a bunch of these out there, right? So you can hire these virtual assistants that can help you manage your portfolio. If you've got 8, 10, 12, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 properties, right? You can do this with virtual assistants. Now, the odd thing is that what you probably need, and what Gary talked about at our recent Venture Alliance meeting in New York, I mentioned that talk before because I think it was kind of a pivotal talk. So Gary, thank you for raising the issue. I've certainly raised it before and thought about it, but you expressed it in kind of a different way. And so I appreciate that very much. So with this, the type of person you need, right? The thing we do in our role is we don't really manage the properties. We might self-manage, but we might just manage our managers. But the typical property manager goes out in their car and visits properties, right? We don't do that, thankfully we don't do that. We don't break a sweat in the hot sun of whatever market, or we don't get soaking wet in the rain of whatever market, or we don't get freezing cold and frostbite in the cold of whatever market, right? We don't do that stuff. So we don't get our hands very dirty in that, but we self-manage remotely from a distance. And there are techniques on this. Of course, we talked about it on many prior episodes. So we might manage our managers or self-manage, but then we also do some record keeping and bookkeeping and kind of general administrative admin task, right, in managing our portfolio. So, hey, maybe we don't want to do this ourselves. Don't blame you a bit, right? It's not bad to do it yourself at first so you have a real hands-on understanding of it. But then once you know how to do it, and by default, I know most of you are just doing this, right? But if you want to free up some time, and remember the metric I've given you over the years, unless there's some exceptional problem, and the time, by the way, this metric I'm about to share, which I've shared before, may be a lot less than the number I'm going to say. Do you remember the number? The Hartman metric is 1 hour per month per property. 1 hour per month per property is about the real amount of time you spend on dealing with your properties. Look, you're paying the mortgage payments by auto pay. Hopefully you've escrowed or impounded your taxes and insurance, so you don't pay that directly. It's the lender is responsible for that. And you've set up some systems, and you're treating your real estate portfolio like a business. And if you have a VA, a virtual assistant, do this stuff, you don't delegate and abandon them. You delegate them and watch them, and you pay attention to them. But you let them do some of the grunt work, so to speak. And on these various websites, these people are reviewed and rated. It's kind of this sharing economy concept. So you got a lot of advantages versus hiring an unknown. So you need a blend of almost a property manager, maybe someone who has property management experience, and a bookkeeper or an admin assistant, right? And I would lean more toward bookkeeper specifically, that really wants to do the numbers type stuff and account for things. And it's kind of a blend of those two disciplines. If you have a larger portfolio, you might break this role up into 2 people. And say you allow 2 hours per property per month, and say you're paying them a pretty healthy sum, like say they're a highly qualified virtual assistant, and you're paying, I'll just throw it out there, $25 per hour. So that's $50. You're allowing 2 hours per month per property. It's 50 hours per month per property. There's your pro forma. And say you're self-managing, so you're saving whatever you would spend on the property manager. You're doing a la carte services. You're just having the property manager for the tenant turn, and you're probably keeping your tenants longer because you're self-managing and you're doing a better job than many property managers will. But that's sort of another discussion. Lest I say I go into a tangent. This is the 10th episode. We got to get back on topic. Maybe I have ADHD. So I just wanted to throw that out there and share that with you, because I think this is a topic we want to explore a lot more. We're going to get some of these virtual assistant companies on the show, and we're going to be talking more about this, whether you manage your managers or you directly but remotely self-manage, non-local self-management. We will talk more about this topic. Now, the other thing, one more thing before we get to our guest today. You've all heard the story that I believe is largely a myth. It's an urban legend, right? About how you get the call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, right. I've never had that call. I've had hundreds of tenants. A very large share of them have been self-managed over the years. And, I just don't get that call. And, I really don't hear, in fact, I don't think I've ever heard, of any real investor that's really had that happen. Just like I've never heard of anybody ever getting a slip and fall lawsuit before. Ever. Never heard it. Never happened. I'm sure it happened, but I've never heard of it happening. No one has ever told me that has happened to them. So these urban legends still persist and exist. But there are companies And you can have a virtual assistant do this, but you can have an actual company do it. So I'm looking at a website right now of a company that will field these calls 24/7, 365, apartmentlines.com. You can just go check them out. We're going to invite them on the show to hear about their service, and they basically are an outsourced solution for apartments and landlords that want to have their inbound calls managed. There are lots of choices out there. A lot of these things are very inexpensive. I remember I did a speech several years back for a leasing agents association that was an association of on-site property managers. And I talked about some of the services and the 800 number services that track calls and track leads and all this kind of stuff. We used to use one of those services when we advertised on the radio in the old days, on KFI, KBC, all these radio stations, Sirius XM, or what is it called nowadays? Sirius, right? It used to be called XM. So there are all of these services out there. The world is an abundant place. Lots of great services for you to use. You just put a few pieces together, you assemble a few things, and it is truly amazing what you can do nowadays. You know, we are living at an amazing time in history. You weren't able to do this in the past. So it is an amazing time to be alive. More to come on this topic. I'm going way too long here. We've got to get to our guest. So look forward to an announcement real soon. Like I've mentioned, do not book a tropical vacation. You're going with us in November. We got a totally new 2-day conference that we are doing in a beautiful tropical location. So it's coming up. Stay tuned for that. Also, stay tuned for a contest that we've got coming up. I just received via UPS a autographed guitar autographed by our 1000th episode guest, Colby Calais. She sent it to me. I'm going to be giving that away in a contest. So look for more details on that, and we will talk to you soon. But here is our 10th episode guest as we talk about using disadvantages to your advantage. It's my pleasure to welcome Peter Shankman. He is the founder of Harrow, Help a Reporter Out. That is a very well-known website you've probably heard of. It was sold to Vocus, which is now Cision. He's founder and CEO of The Geek Factory, best-selling author of Faster Than Normal, Turbocharge Your Focus, Productivity, and Success with the Secrets of the ADHD Brain. And he's also author of some other great books, so he'll talk about those. Peter, welcome. How are you?
Oh, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Where are you located?
New York City.
Good stuff. Was Harrow your first online venture?
Harrow was actually my third company. My first company was a public relations agency, which was acquired. And then I started a travel company that allowed people to choose their seatmate before they got on the airplane. That was acquired. And then Harrow was the big one.
Did you say choose their seat or their seatmate?
Their seatmate.
Oh, is that still around? That's an interesting idea.
It was acquired by a private equity company, and I don't believe it's around anymore now.
Yeah, okay. Good stuff. That's a good idea. You have done a lot of great stuff. Obviously, to do great stuff, you've got to be able to focus and increase productivity. Talk to us about Faster Than Normal and some of the secrets of the ADHD brain. Most people would, I guess, think that's a handicap probably, right?
Yeah, it's actually not. ADHD is actually a gift. It's not a curse, and I'm trying to change that conversation worldwide. We have a podcast called Faster Than Normal, which focuses on exactly that. And we've had guests on that podcast ranging from Tony Robbins to Seth Godin, Dave Needleman to Keith Crouch, all of whom have ADHD and believe that it is their secret weapon. ADHD simply means your brain moves at a faster speed. You can comprehend things faster. You can see things faster. However, it's putting on the brakes that sometimes causes trouble. So I work very hard at making sure that my life follows a specific set of life rules that allow me to go at 180 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour without sort of coming off the rails, as it were.
Are you technically diagnosed with ADHD?
3 times.
3 times. Okay, so you have a real clinical diagnosis because, a lot of times I wonder if we're just over-diagnosing our population, and if it seems like the pharmaceutical industry wants to, everything's like a symptom and we got to fix it, and here's a new drug that we can make zillions of dollars off of. Tell us, dig into how it's a benefit. I mean, how is being unfocused a benefit?
Yeah, the big misconception about ADHD is that it's unfocused. It's actually the complete opposite. ADHD is incredibly strong hyperfocus. I wrote my last book, actually my last two books, Zombie Loyalists, Using Great Service to Create Rabid Fans, and Faster Than Normal, Secrets of the ADHD Brain, both of which are worldwide bestsellers. Those were both written entirely on airplanes. Literally, I took a 14-hour flight to Asia, wrote chapters 1 through 5 of Zombie Loyalists, went to the lounge, took a shower, got back on the same plane, same seat 2 hours later, and wrote chapters 6 through 10 on the flight home, landing 31 hours after I took off with a book.
I heard the story. You're the guy that did that. You just took the plane back and forth.
I'm in Cal Norris's Deep Work, where he mentions that.
Yes. Yeah, I had him on the show. Yeah.
For me, that's really what that is about. I understand how to use that deep focus to the best of my ability. The key is understanding how your brain works. So it's not a disadvantage, and it's not that you're not focused. When I'm doing something I don't enjoy, something that bores me, my brain is constantly looking for dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline to keep me focused, keep me busy, keep me excited. That's where the ADHD part comes in. That's where the hyperactive part comes in, where people think you're unfocused. What you're actually doing is looking for those chemicals to keep you going. You're
changing focus, looking for that dopamine, serotonin reward? Is that?
Normal people have a certain amount. They say, okay, I have to do this math project. I don't like math class, but I have to sit and do this. So my brain will automatically delve out that amount of dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline so I can focus. People with ADHD don't have those same monoamine inhibitors to create that. We have about 25% less. So we have to figure out ways to give ourselves that level of adrenaline, dopamine, and serotonin. For some people, that is medication. The problem is we're putting 5-year-olds on amphetamine salts because they're 5 years old.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Scary.
So I've learned ways of sort of creating and making my own world work for me so that I'm able to generate those chemicals on demand. And, some of those things sound very strange, but they work for me. My day starts at 3:45 in the morning. I'm up every day at 3:45 in the morning, and I'm either at the gym for 2 hours or on my Peloton bike for 2 hours, or I'm out for a long run. That gives me the chemistry usually that I need to get through an entire day.
Okay, so you can get it from exercise. We all know the endorphin benefit of exercise and so forth, and many other benefits. How else do you get it, though?
Well, I'm a licensed skydiver.
Uh-huh.
I have over 400 skydives. I go on stage and keynote to conferences of 10, 20,000 people. That right there is a huge boost for me. Being on stage is that high that I crave. And, the more I can figure out ways to get that, and the more I allow myself ways to live in a sort of positive environment in that regard. For instance, I have pretty much 2 uniforms. I have a uniform that I use for speaking and when I'm on stage, when I'm on television, and then I have a uniform when I'm in the office or traveling. One is t-shirt and jeans, the other is button-down shirt and jeans, and that's it. My suits, my jackets, the sweater vests, those are all in another closet in another room of my apartment, because if I had to look at them every morning when I got dressed, I'd get sidetracked. Oh, I remember that sweater. I got the sweater from Michelle. I should look her up, see how she's doing. It's 3 hours later. I'm naked in the living room on Facebook, and I haven't left the house. So I'm very aware of the things that can derail me, and I make a concerted effort, by living the life the way I do, I make a concerted effort not to get derailed by those things.
Talk to us about the 4 undeniable ADHD life rules.
First one is exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is elimination of choice, as I mentioned. Third one is healthy eating. I joked that if it wasn't recognized as food by my grandmother back in the 1910s, I probably won't eat it. That's the problem, is that there's so much garbage out there filled with sugar.
Oh, yeah.
So eating simply healthy, it's almost like a ketosis-type diet that I follow. I'm not perfect at it, but I do my best. And finally, getting enough sleep. So I mentioned I'm up at 3:45 in the morning. To do that, I'm usually asleep by around 8:30 every night.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my God, you must miss out on so much. And I really don't. You'd be amazed how many people actually go to sleep early. The ones who are doing the deals at 7 a.m. over egg whites at the at the plaza, those are the ones who have already worked out and who have already gotten to bed early. Those are the market makers.
Yeah. Well, and certainly you're more harmony with nature, which is good for your circadian rhythms as well. So that all sounds very good. I'm not sure exactly what questions I should always be asking about this because, there's a lot of sort of this borders on the medical side of things. So just tell the listeners what you want us to know. Tell us what we need to know about this, how we can use it. Also, I'm curious, what percentage of the population do they say has ADHD to one degree or another?
Well, I'm not a doctor, so, I don't claim to know anything about sort of the disease or the condition as it applies to a medical situation. What I do know is what works for me, and I know the tools that I'm able to use to make my life work the best that I want.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that for me, it's really more about, I know that my brain acts a certain way. I know that if I live my life a certain way, I'm much more successful. Because of that, I choose to live that way.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down at the end of the day to what are your goals? What do you want to do? How do you want to succeed or not succeed in your life? And some people might think that what I do is crazy. You get up at 3:45 a.m. What are you, a farmer? But it works for me.
Right.
You can live your life the way you want. Anyone can live the life the way that I want. This is the way that works for me.
Sure.
And so I think that at the end of the day, the rules that I put into place are not just for my ADHD. They help me in every facet of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so what always drives me crazy is people who, oh, yeah, I can't believe you go to the gym so early. I wish I'd get up so early. Well, you can. Oh, no, I'm always so tired. Well, I saw you on Facebook at 1 a.m. commenting on something. You choose what's important, and what's important comes at the expense of something that's not important, because we all have the same 24 hours in the day. So if, for me, getting up early, exercising, and having that feeling of completion is important to me. So because of that, what does that come at the expense of? Well, for me, that comes at the expense of staying out late or staying up late or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone you have to figure out what's important to you. I run a mastermind group called Shankman with about 250 members. And every once in a while, a member will leave. And I usually ask them why. And they'll say, oh, I just don't have the time. I'm like, well, but you do. You don't have the priority. And that's an entirely different thing. And saying you don't have the time is kind of an insult to the other 250 members who have managed to make the time. Right? So It's not that you don't have the time. It's simply that it's not a priority to you. And that's fine. But call it what it is.
Right. It's always a choice. I mean, when we close one door, we open another. That's the way life works, of course. Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. You've been around the PR world. Some of your books are centered around that. Obviously, Harrow was an incredible website. That industry has changed so much over the years. Really, the internet has been this huge shift in the way that works. A lot of our listeners, they have small businesses and so forth. Can you share any of your tips from the publicity world?
Yeah, it's actually very easy to get press. Be a little better than what everyone expects. And let's face it, the concept of the customer experience, the concept of the experience, the concept of pitching, people suck. They are terrible at it. They're terrible at doing anything that somehow involves them actually having to give or do something. I think it's so funny to watch people who are like, oh, I pitched this reporter and he totally didn't bite. Like, well, he didn't bite because you spent the majority of your pitch explaining why you're so awesome, not explaining why his or her readers would want that article.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that reporters are doing 10 times more with 5 times less. What can you do to make things a little better for the reporter? Can you help them find a trend in the story you're covering? So it's not just about you or your company. No one cares.
Right.
What else can you do? At the end of the day, it comes down to, can you just be a little bit better than what we expect?
Yeah. How does it impact their readers, their followers, their listeners? Absolutely. You have a book that's just dedicated to publicity stunts. I love that. I've heard of some great ones over the years. That was written back in 2007. Is it still the same? I mean, would those ideas work? And feel free to share any of them that you'd like to.
I don't necessarily have to share a specific stunt, but I'll say this. A stunt for the sake of a PR stunt is pointless. What you want is a public relations stunt that will drive traffic, drive revenue, drive whatever. Today people are all about making things viral. Well, here's the thing. You can't make anything viral. Don't focus on making something viral. Focus on make something good.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on creating something good. That will change, your life, because if you create something good, it will go viral by default.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate seeing, oh, I want to make this viral video. No, you don't. Just make make good content. Create good content. It will go from there.
Right. Good stuff. Got some other books as well. Do you want to share something about any of them? I mean, The Zombie Loyalist is huge, I think.
Yeah, Zombie Loyalist was a pretty great book. That was using great service to create rabid fans. That's, again, basically the premise that you don't need to be awesome. You simply need to be a little bit better than what people expect. And again, since the bar is so low for the customer standpoint.
Isn't that sad?
it really is. It's a simple act of, you go on a plane, you get there on time, and they haven't given your seat away or dragged you off the plane by your nose, you're excited.
Right.
Right? So
yeah.
You don't really need more than that. All you need is to just be a little bit better than what people expect. And the bar is so low. My favorite joke is the two guys are on a trail run in the woods, and they see a bear, and the first guy leans down, he tightens up his running shoes, and the second guy says, don't be crazy, you can't outrun a bear. And the first guy says, no, I just need to outrun you.
That's exactly the point. You just need to be better than the competition. You don't have to be perfect by any means. Any examples of the better than the competition companies out there creating these zombie loyalists?
The simple act of listening to your audience. Listen to what they want. Listen to what they are looking for. And they'll tell you. They'll tell you exactly what you want, they'll tell you exactly what they want, as long as you take the time to listen. I have so many people say, oh, we should get on this new social network. That's where we should advertise. Well, is your audience there? Have you talked to them about it? Have you asked them? does your audience hang out there? Don't go after the latest shiny thing just because it exists. Focus on where your clients are. Listen to them. They'll tell you where you're supposed to be. It is truly amazing how many people don't bother to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You remind me, though, I'm wondering if there's any contradiction in that or any time that doesn't work. For example, when you were talking about eliminating choice, right, with the ADHD thing, I instantly thought, although I didn't mention it, of Steve Jobs and his wardrobe, of the 501 jeans and the New Balance sneakers and the black mock turtleneck. He must have had a whole closet full of them, right?
That's exactly what I said about earlier about my closet. I have t-shirts and jeans.
Yep.
I have button-down shirts and jeans. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't need to be great. I don't need to do anything else. I'm very happy with what I'm doing because it works for me.
Just keeping it really simple. But interestingly, though, I think Jobs was quoted as saying something to the effect of, Apple doesn't run focus groups, for example. Sometimes the customer sort of doesn't know what they want, right? You just have to put it out there. And I remember Paul Pilzer in his old book, Unlimited Wealth, he talked about like the old Sony cordless, waterproof cordless phone, right? Like nobody said they needed that. They just had to sort of think of it, and then everybody with a pool in the backyard wanted one, right?
Yep.
Henry Ford said, if I listened to everybody, they would have said, give me a faster horse, right?
Yeah, but it's funny. Yeah. People bring that quote up, and that quote is complete and utter crap.
Yeah. I'm just wondering where you come down on it. That's all.
Well, the thing about that quote is that, when you're talking about completely reinventing the world, yes, you do need to think differently, and you need to just go out on your own and go for a whim. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty sure that you and I are not Elon Musk.
Right, yeah.
Okay? We're not sitting here creating reusable rockets to go to Mars. No, we're doing things like email marketing.
Right.
Okay? We're doing stuff for our ROI for our company that involves marketing, advertising, PR, entrepreneurship. That right there, you do need to listen to your customers. Mm-hmm. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're not defining pie. We're doing things that are benefiting our business by helping our customers. So the simple act of listening to our customers will give us what we need. If you believe that you're not supposed to listen to your customers and believe that you're supposed to go out on your own and create something new, I hope you're creating something new that's going to change the world. Because if you're doing it with the premise of creating the same thing and doing it your way, not listening to your customers, you're going to lose.
Right.
When I worked in America Online, we started off by creating these great news platforms and these great news packages, and they looked awesome to us because we were sitting on OC12 pipes. They were being delivered to people with 2400 baud modems, and they looked like crap. Yeah,
so a disruptive innovation is more like the Apple and the Musk concept versus traditional businesses. It's not disruptive. So yeah, makes sense. That's a good distinction. Very good distinction. Anything else you want our listeners to know as we wrap it up?
No, I think that, as an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship is lonely as hell. And it's just, if nothing else, take care of yourself, get enough sleep, drink a lot of water, eat a vegetable every once in a while, do things that you're your longest term project, not your business. Mm-hmm. If you're not at the top of your game, no one else could be.
Peter, give out your website. Tell people where they can find out more.
Sure. My mastermind is at shankminds.com, and Faster Than Normal is the ADHD site. FasterThanNormal.com is the podcast as well.
Fantastic. Peter Shankman, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.